Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final training camp show of 2024. With it being the final show, it is at least part of a crossover of Patriots Daily and Patriots Beat. I'm Alex Barth with Mike Kadlick and Tayler Kyles of Patriots Daily. Brian Hines is still at Gillette working hard. No, he's not. He's at a concert, and good for him for enjoying himself, honestly, because we have made it through the grind that is Patriots training camp. And I don't mean that to be disparaging to the team. Like, training camp kind of becomes a grind. Dog days of summer. Today, case in point, where they're getting ready for the regular season. This was not a competitive training camp practice. And that doesn't mean it wasn't useless, but this was not about figuring out who's on the roster and who's not. This was about getting ready for Washington, and an extension of that, getting ready for Cincinnati in 2 weeks. Are there things you can take away from that? Yes. And I still think their roster spots to be won. That will come in the game on Sunday. But as a wise man once said, we're on to Cincinnati in terms of the approach to these practices. So that being said, I think the big takeaway from today, because it is more of a game-like setting, so you look more, you know how much I love talking about usage, not necessarily results this time of year, but usage. It was that same offensive line again. So if Darian Lowe gets hurt Wednesday, they plug Caden Wallace in. That's the group. Then on Thursday, they mix it up a little more. Chuks Okorafor goes from right to left. Michael Wynn comes in at right tackle. Layden Robinson is added to the lineup at right guard. We saw that group again today. Very, very limited sample size, but I feel comfortable saying this at this point. And Tayler, Mike, feel free to disagree if you don't agree with me. This is the plan B. If Darian Lowe doesn't work out, now there's a report yesterday from Christopher Price that it's a minor injury. So I'm not going to say if Darian Lowe doesn't get back, because I think he gets back for week 1. But if for whatever reason, Darian Lowe can't be in the lineup, injury or performance, this feels like the group that they want to be that next one up.
It has been a major shuffle, like really over the last few days here, where it started early on. The offensive line was, they were kind of going through their competition on the left side, right? We saw each guy, Calvin Anderson, Darian Lowe, Caden Wallace, each get a couple days at left tackle. And then we asked Drake Maye what their plan is. He said that they would like to have it, figured out towards the second or third preseason game. He kind of switched it up, but it was somewhere in there was their timeline for it. And it looked like it was going to be Darian Lowe on the left side, Chuks on the right side, and Mike Onwenu inside. And that felt like that was, like you mentioned, this is plan B. That was plan A. And then it really kind of blew up in their face this last week with Darian Lowe getting injured. And now they kind of have to shuffle not only Okorafor from – he was on the left side, then he was on the right side, and he was out for a little while, and then he came back. And now he's back to being their left tackle for right now. And then Doug Kyde, I believe, asked Drake Maye what it would take for Mike Onwenu to have to play tackle. And we got our answer, and that's Darian Lowe going out. So now, again, Chuks is on the right. Mike has to play right tackle, and it puts Layden Robinson, right into the Patriots starting lineup pretty much right away as a fourth-round rookie. So, Tayler, we talked about it, and you sort of mentioned it, but I would just second and agree with you that at this point in time, I think Robinson's more ready than Caden Wallace might be on the inside versus Wallace on the outside. So, look, it looks like this is what they're going to try for now. I do wonder if and when Lowe comes back, if they do take Mike and kick him back inside, or if they stick with this. It's long story short, it felt like they found their answer, and now they're kind of back to messing with pieces, and it still doesn't seem like they have the five they truly want on the front line.
So, Tayler, I want to really highlight something as I phrase this question to you that Mike said there. Basically, plan B is one of the rookies. I don't think it's going to be Nick Leverett. It's not going to be like Michael Jordan Wright stepping into the lineup. It's going to be either Layden Robinson at guard or Caden Wallace at tackle. Is Layden Robinson the better answer right now between the two?
I think so, yeah. And I think they were pretty much showing us that with the way that they were rotating Layden Robinson and Sidy Sow, and Drake Maye saying, yeah, no, it's a competition there. If you look at the preseason games especially, Layden Robinson has been one of the Patriots' best players either side of the ball. He's been really consistent, whereas Caden Wallace has had his struggles. You see the promise, you see the talent and all that, but there are some kinks that he needs to work out, so I understand why the team isn't comfortable with him starting yet, which is why I think you did see like the whole massive switch within Wynn ending up a tackle, because they just don't want to put Caden in a situation right now where he has to be out there. I do think that Darian Lowe is someone they want to start at tackle. Like, he was kind of like a City So or David Andrews, where for most of practice or most of the summer and then going into the spring, well, not the spring, in the summer once he got there, he really didn't move. And even when they were like shuffling people around, Vidarian stayed at left tackle. So I think that he really is the plan there. And then if he gets back, I think we'll see Nwenu back inside and then Chooks on the right. But I do wonder, are they going to give Layden extensive looks and maybe start him over City if you end up seeing Layden have a good preseason game and they're saying, all right, well, City, you know, we love you and you got a lot of good tape, but you've also got more bad tape than Layden does. It's going to be really interesting to see, but I definitely think Layden, I don't want to say that I know definitively he's ready. I haven't seen him against, on film, another NFL team's starters, but I do like what we've seen so far. I'm excited.
All right, it is a crossover episode, so let's keep the crossover going here as we the one other big story to me from Friday's practice, Bobby Manning, Celtics reporter. Is there any story that'll excite casual fans beyond Brissett May this year? I'm scared. Well, I'll tell you this, and it's not necessarily as like sexy as drawing as the quarterbacks, but if there's one rookie that's in a position to really pop, it's Jaylen Pul. He's come on really strong here late in camp. He's getting a ton of opportunities. He's running with the ones. We'll see what happens at guard with Layden Robinson if Vidarian Lowe comes back. I still think as long as Lowe's back, they won't start either of the rookies, at least not right away. That will come later on. Jaylen Polk might start. Jaylen Polk, I think, is the guy that's going to get the most snaps as a rookie called through the first month of the season. Had another good catch today, out route from Drake Maye. May kind of put the ball high, so it was away from the defender. Polk goes on an out route. Polk goes up over his head, makes the catch, still gets his feet down and bounds. You're seeing him just kind of be that reliable, consistent target. Not a cat, Taylor?
Yeah, it was my cat.
I was going to say, otherwise I don't know where that noise is coming from. Yeah, Jaylen Polk, just that consistent, available option. Not really a big play threat, but that's not what we expected. That being said, new Patriots fans, more than anybody, are starving for a rookie wide receiver to get excited about. We got a little taste of that with Pop Douglas last year, but obviously he was hurt for a good chunk of the season. Maybe Jaylen Polk is going to be that guy. I don't know if he is. Like, there are parts about his game I like. I still have concerns about his ceiling, given just his lack of explosiveness, but they're going to give him a shot. He's going to have an opportunity to be a difference maker in this offense, I think, based off the way the last couple of weeks have gone.
And outside of Demario Douglas, I would say that he's been their most consistent receiver throughout camp. And and even Pop's their guy. They're going to run the offense through Pop in the slot and what have you. But even Douglas has been in and out with an injury and a non-contact jersey. And Jaylen Polk's been there every single practice. He's there. He makes catches when they ask him to. He's been pretty much involved in and around the starting lineup since the beginning. And now he's really starting to get those looks where, Taylor, did you just make that face at me or a comment?
No, it was in the comment section.
I thought it was at the cat.
I would never make that face at my darling daughter. No.
but yeah, Polk started camp strong. I don't think he fell off in the middle, but when Javon Baker started to kind of shine for those couple weeks there, it felt like, oh, do they have something in Baker and not Polk? And Baker's kind of fallen off now, and Polk's just been steady, and he's taking the Z reps. He's taking the 1 reps there. They're going to rotate guys, and obviously KJ Osborne's going to be in the mix as well, and things like that. But I think they really have something in this kid, and he's not going to go. He's not going to shine, right? You're not going to go out there and be like, wow, Jaylen Polk is a mega star. But then you might go and look at the box score, and he's going to have 10 catches for 100 yards, and it's going to be like almost like a quiet 100-yard game. He's a guy who I think they're going to rely on, and they're going to rely on early. And like you mentioned, Alex, that's exciting because, we've longed for a rookie to actually do something here in New England.
I also think he has more explosive potential than what we've seen. Like, he was one of the best deep receivers in college football last year. A lot of it really, though, is, like we mentioned this in our show, Mike, how some of it is going to be chemistry where you want to give him back shoulder balls, like we saw in the throw that Jacoby missed him, where he has late speed. Like, if he's even with the guy, you'll give him a chance downfield because he is able to create a little bit of room later on in the route. So, again, I agree. I think he's got good potential. The fact that he looks like he could end up starting or at least rotating heavily with KJ Osborne right out of the gate, extremely impressive. Also, just want to clarify one thing, Los, you're not totally wrong, but Jaylen actually is used pretty much like Jacoby, where Jacoby in 2 receiver sets would usually be on the outside, and then he kind of kick inside a little bit more for like 3 receiver stuff. Jaylen's kind of like that because they have Pop. They don't need to use him that way as much. But you do see like when they have all the young receivers, where with Drake Maye, a lot of the times have Javon Baker, Jaylen Pul, and they'll have Keyshawn Boutte. Polk is the guy inside. So he's scheme versatile. I don't think they really like him at X. They haven't put him there much at all this summer, but they do have formations where he's all the way outside and on line of scrimmage. So it's essentially the same kind of role. But Jaylen Polk, definitely somebody to be excited about. And I think there's more to his game, like I mentioned earlier, than what we've actually been able to see so far.
Are you surprised by that they haven't used him more at X? Because he is kind of a bigger guy. He's not big, but he's bigger, right? And just them being so desperate at that position, it's become very clear they like Tyquan Thornton there. But even as like an insurance plan, because we know Tyquan Thornton struggles to stay on the field, are you like, I'm a little surprised they haven't tried him at the X a bit more.
I was, and when I mentioned I'd like to see Polk, KJ Osborne, and then Pop, because I think they've been the three best receivers. That doesn't mean Tyquan's been bad. We just haven't seen him as much, and he hasn't been as consistent production-wise. But I just think at that X spot, like, they want speed. When you look at all the guys they've got, it's Tyquan, it's Jalen Reagor, Javon Baker, who isn't a speed guy, but he is a deep ball specialist primarily. And then obviously Keyshawn Boutte, similar more to Javon Baker than he is the other guys. But I just don't think Polk has the verticality they want for that spot, although I think he has just enough for that Z receiver role.
That would be quite the aesthetic as well, getting those 1, 2, 3 out there, those jersey numbers. We've been longing for it. And
well, you know how I feel. I wanted the 617, and obviously it didn't work out with Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right.
But maybe when Joe Milton takes 7, you get into a little 12 personnel where it's 7 throwing to 1 and 6 or something like
Love
that.
it. Do you think he's going to take number 7? Yesterday, I asked him the other day, and he said he was going to defer to the veterans first. So
that's the right answer, by the way. That is the correct answer.
What veteran would wear 7, though? I was thinking about that. I don't know anybody who has a history of 7 that would want to switch.
There's so many guys, though, that entered the league before you could wear the single-digit numbers that might just want – because how many single-digit numbers are open? 1, 2, 3's taken. 4 might be open. We don't know. But they're going to bring him back on the practice squad if they cut him. So
that's a good point.
5's taken, 6
is taken,
7, 8. So it's 7 and 9. That's really it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there might just be guys that want single-digit numbers to have single-digit numbers, and they don't care what it is. Because
Bentley did it. Bentley moved from 51 to 8. Right. Judon, obviously. I mean, Judon did it when he moved over here.
He had like a specific he was 99, and that was taken.
Right. Oh, that's fair.
I personally hate the single-digit aesthetic on most players. I don't love it, especially on like bigger players like linebackers and
like Juwan Bentley,
tight ends.
Judon took some getting used to for me.
Judon, the only exception for whatever reason, tight ends wearing 0 works for me. Can't explain why, but it does.
Huh.
Right. I know. I don't like that. I like it, but it's got to be like a bit like. I remember there were some people thought Kyle Pitts was going to take 0 when he first went to Atlanta, and like the Kyle Pitts number 0 photoshops. Like it looked tough. It looked tough. Okay. I would give him that. Or Darnell Washington wore 0 at Georgia. And so you got to be like a big tight end. You can't be like, one of these 6'2". Kyle Juszczyk couldn't wear 0 and get away with it. But if you're like 6'5", 250 playing tight end, you can wear 0.
Speaking of number 0, guys.
There you go.
We have
look at that.
A Christian Gonzalez Patriots CLNS signed helmet giveaway. We found one of these down in Foxboro during training camp. So if you want a chance at it, go do us a favor. Head over to our Instagram at Patriots CLNS. You'll see a post. It's pinned. There's a caption with rules to enter. Again, you can get a number 0 Christian Gonzalez signed mini helmet that we obtained down in Foxboro from our lovely producers. So yeah, go check it out if you want to get in. No cost necessary, obviously. Just go in there, sign up via the rules in our Instagram page at Patriots CLNS.
And also remember, if you go to our Twitter, there's a tweet there where you can sign up for our fantasy punter league. We're going to pick for you. We're probably going to pick that early next week. We got to get through roster cuts first. We're going to be busy, but from there, if you want to join that, we're still taking entries. And Brian, go track the planes. I hear there's a Boeing from London coming in.
Also, people are saying that Jacoby Brissett is going to take 7. I think he stays with 14. He's had 14 before in his career, hasn't he?
We were 14 last year.
He could take 7, though. I could see that. All right. How good of a veteran, when I say that, like I'm trying to think of the term, Jacoby Brissett, if you saw the clip from Devon Godshaw's podcast yesterday, it's like all about these rookie quarterbacks, Drake Maye and Joe Milton, helping them along, making sure they're comfortable, etc. does he give Joe Milton 7 to help the kid feel like he fits in and belongs? Like, how selfless of a leader is Jacoby Brissett? I'm not saying if he takes 7, I'm going to call him an a-hole.
Right.
But like, really, if it does he go like, you know what, I'm here for the year and then I'm moving on to start somewhere else? Joe, it's all you.
So, all right, I'm looking up Jacoby's numbers now, and he wore 7 with the Patriots, then with the Colts. I know he wore 14 with Washington last year.
What about Miami? I think was he?
Oh,
was
Miami
he
too. I
might have been with Fitz. So I don't know if he did.
Brissett wore 14 with the Dolphins.
There you go.
And he wore, I want to say he wore 7 with the Browns, but yeah, he wore 7 with the Browns. So he's pretty much split. So he's not tied to a certain number. So I would not be surprised if he said, you know what, Joe, have it. I want you to have it. You're probably going to be here longer than me. You spent a lot of money on that big gold chain of yours that has the number 7. Take it. Buddy.
Maybe that's the trade. Joe gets 7, but he has to get Jacoby a 14 chain.
That would be hilarious.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Maybe that's right. All right, let's get back. There's actually one thing I wanted to mention on the offensive line. A couple of you brought it up in the chat. I want to see if I can at least give one of you credit for this. And I'm just playing catch up on this because I was writing until right before we got on the show. So I'm going to kind of lean on you two for that. Yeah, this is way back in the chat. The Bengals, I believe, cut Jackson Carman.
Yes.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Little surprised by that. He obviously wasn't going to start. They have Orlando Brown. They have Trent Brown. Marius Mims is hurt right now, but he'll be back. But this is a guy that's available that started games in this league. I would say of all the players that are out there right now that we've talked about, the Donovan Smiths and David Bakhtiaris of the world, I personally would feel a lot better about Carman than some of those guys. Do the Patriots make the call, Taylor? Should they make the call?
I mean, they don't have a lot of options at tackle right now. I'm looking up and seeing how Carman's performed in the preseason. He's been a little bit better than Caden Wallace. Like literally, he ranks right above Caden Wallace, and Caden Wallace isn't graded particularly high. He has experience. He also has positional versatility. He's played both guard spots, so I don't hate it. Considering at this point, Caden Wallace is your third tackle, and you don't really have anyone behind him, given Calvin Anderson's situation. But I mean, it's not like he's this great player, and it's like yes, like that's going to be the answer. They just need depth at this point. So for that reason, sure, but I don't think Carman's someone who's going to like significantly change the picture at offensive tackle. I don't think he's that guy.
Well, okay, nobody they're going to add at this point is going to change the picture, but I guess here's the point. We know they need a body. They need a veteran. They need somebody. I guess we think that fourth tackle right now, if they don't add anybody, is Calvin Anderson. Yeah. Is he an upgrade over Calvin Anderson? Part 1. Part 2, if he is, will there be somebody better than Jackson Carman who becomes available? Or do you think this is about as good as you're going to get in terms of available tackles at this time of year? Because that I believe. I'm not saying Jackson Carman's a world beater and he's going to solve everything. And you sign Jackson Carman, so next year you don't have to draft Will Campbell, and you could take Will Johnson. Right? That's not what I'm saying. But I think Jackson Carman's as good as you're going to get right now. And I think he's better than Calvin Anderson. I would take advantage of the opportunity.
I would just say quickly that I think he's better than Calvin Anderson as well, except for the fact that he doesn't have experience in this system with the Patriots yet, right? So, like, you kind of got to get him up to speed there where now, granted, Anderson is hurt, so he doesn't really do you much right now. We're going to have to see where that timeline goes. But I think you're right. I mean, this is a guy who was a second-round pick 3 years ago, has started games in the league, and is someone who, again, like, what was it? Dennis Daly was the guy the other day where like that was like the big prize. Like Jackson Carman has so much more potential than a guy like that.
Dennis Daly, the last year he was the starter in 2022, was the worst graded offensive lineman in the league by PFF.
So, I mean, I think you at least have to throw your hat in the ring, no?
Okay, one, I'm curious why we think that Carman's better than Calvin Anderson. One, Calvin Anderson has started more games in his career, and he actually made it to the end of his rookie deal without getting cut. So let's throw those two things in the mix. And also, like, I don't know that Carman's an upgrade. Like you meant, we talked about at the good food store. Like Carman, or you need somebody, ideally, you would like to have someone who actually has experience in the system, has worked with these guys, because we know that's already going to be a huge. Now, if they add somebody, that's going to be a moot point. I just don't know that Carman's any better than Calvin Anderson. Again, he didn't even finish his rookie deal with his team. I don't really care that he was taken in the second round. Clearly, he wasn't doing enough for them to keep him. And Calvin Anderson can play both tackle spots. Carman has played left tackle, but everything else has been at guard, so we don't even know if he has that swing tackle versatility.
One other small thing on the offense from today, then we'll get to the defense. A small thing. We've kind of bemoaned that tight end depth. Nobody's emerged as the third guy, whether it's Mitchell Wilcox, Jaheim Bell, like nobody stepped up. Jacob Warren had a really good catch today. Jaheim Bell caught a touchdown today. Dare I say it was the best practice of the summer for like the depth tight ends? I mean, not that it was this
a low bar.
Amazing practice.
But
that's kind of
it's
my
a
point,
low bar, and they walked all day. Like that's when you know.
Maybe a little momentum if somebody breaks out. If Jaheim Bell is a really big game Sunday night, does he solve that problem? You know, we were talking about it today at practice, Tayler. Do you call CJ Uzomah? We've talked about Peyton Hendershot. They might have to do that anyway if Hunter Henry's going to miss time. It might be you keep one of these guys, Wilcox, Bell, Warren, and you add a tight end, but does maybe one of them make a little bit of a push here at the end, or are you closed the door on that and those guys just aren't ready or aren't good enough?
I think Jaheim Bell's going to make the roster because he's talented. I think they like him a lot, and I don't think they're going to want to risk having him on waivers, potentially getting poached by somebody else. But that's the only reason he should really make the team, because I'm a big Jaheim Bell fan. If you've read any of my stuff, if you've seen the shows, you know I really like his skill set. I don't think he's ready to contribute unless they use him in a very specific way. But like anytime they've used him in line as a blocker, it's been ugly. Like legitimately guys get into his chest and throw him backwards. Jacob Warren, I think that kind of is what started this whole thing with us. We were like, whoa, Jacob Warren's catching passes and he's not always wide open, because as much as excited I was about his potential, he hasn't really shown much. And then Mitchell Wilcox didn't have a good summer, and now he hasn't practiced. So I don't know that anybody's or LaMichael Petway can throw him in there. I keep forgetting him because, frankly, he hasn't been very memorable. So these guys would have to have like one of the best preseason games of all time, I think, for them to make this roster, because it's not been good from really anybody. I'd say past Hunter Henry. Austin Hooper's had his moments, but even he's been super inconsistent.
Knowing more about Hunter Henry's injury would help us, solve this a lot more, because you don't know if it's going to be a short-term IR thing. They have those two spots. For what it's worth, today Henry was out there catching passes with Austin Hooper in the quarterback warm-up drills. So like he's extending his body. He had a light jog going. So like I feel like he could be close. That's just a little read into it. Again, we don't know what it is. I still think Bell makes the team as well, Tayler. Any of the other guys, no thank you. But there's a chance that they somehow, and I don't know if they do it before roster cuts or after roster cuts, but they end up with, a fourth tight end in someone off a scrap heap, because they need it desperately. I mean, it started to look strong early in camp. Henry was good. Hooper looked consistent, isn't the right word, but he's, built up a rapport with Jacoby. And it's just kind of crumbled in front of them over the last couple of weeks with, both guys getting hurt, Mitchell Wilcox getting hurt. And now it's just like, what the hell do you do there? So, the alarm bells aren't completely going off for me at tight end, but, they have some work to do before the season starts.
I'll just add this on the offense before we wrap up, because 23 minutes in without a reference to the quarterbacks. How about that? Drake Maye got his handful. What was it? 5-6 reps with the starters today. Again, it seems more like they're getting him ready for this Sunday than anything else. Really, it was all jog through. So I'm not going to. Jacoby Brissett hit a couple of deep balls, but it was not the tightest coverage. Joe Milton did throw a ball 60 yards in the air to Matt Landers, who had a pretty egregious push off on Jalen Hawkins to make the catch. I think that's really it on there really was nothing of note for the quarterbacks today.
Yeah. I feel like it would be irresponsible to read into anything that happened today too much. So, like when I tweeted, I just said the injuries and that there was not much to report, because just nothing really significant happened.
Same ones reps as before. Nothing changed, so there's no more. I will throw one more thing into the mix on tight end, and it's from the chat. What do we think about this?
I thought he was on a roster.
He's on the Vikings roster as a tight end, but I don't think he's going to make the team. Not that I've paid attention to Minnesota Vikings 53-man roster projections, but I just don't see this guy warranting a 53-man spot. If he gets cut, He's a good blocker. He's a really good blocker.
He was a good blocker for a wide receiver. That was kind of the point.
That's fair.
Imagine if they did that. They opened in 12, and you had Tyquan Thornton and N'Keal Harry on the field together week 1. They need they need a tackle. Is Isaiah Wynn available? You have all 3 of those guys on the field.
Taylor, 2 of your boys in N'Keal and Tyquan.
Week 1. Taylor likes receivers.
No comment. You know what? I'm not on Tyquan yet, but you know what? He's been doing well. I don't want to put him in that category yet because he still has some hope. Sure. But yeah, N'Keal was, I think, my worst miss ever by a significant margin. I really thought when they were using him as a blocker, I was like, look, this is something like the brain rot that I've experienced from the last 3 years of Patriots football is insane.
No, we've all had that one prospect that we were like, I loved the Anthony Jennings pick. I was so over the moon about that. And remember, he didn't play for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I kept telling people just wait when they get him on the field. And I definitely sounded like an idiot. It's, the South Park episode with Game of Thrones, don't worry, the dragons are coming. And it's hours and hours and hours. Anthony Jennings is cut. Just wait. Just be patient. This guy that hasn't been on the field in 3 years will make plays. Just hang on there. I got lucky on that one. But even at the end there, I was like, I'm in this deep, so I'm going to keep going. But
hey, Jennings is still around.
Is looking rough. It ended up working out, but that's an exception to the rule. It's just something that popped into my head. I do have a thought on the defense today, but first, Mike is going to tell you all about game time.
Let's talk about them. It's football season. It's college football season. There's also concerts going on. Our friend Brian Hines is over at Gillette Stadium right now, and Kenny Chesney is in the building for Country Fest, and you can get into Gillette Stadium tonight at Game Time for as low as $34. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. They filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have super deals. They have awesome deals. And that's just not me describing them. They're literally called that when you go to Game Time Picks. Gives you the best prices on the Game Time app. You can use the app features listed and customize your spot. And the supplemental. Oh, I got it. Supplemental as information. The app features, they're great. You get over 2 Game Time Picks and you can find all the deals you want, curated to make it easier, finding the best price on great seats. Guaranteed. So head over to Game Time today. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
By the way, Isaiah Wynn still on the Dolphins. Not available. I was wrong.
Yeah, he's a guard. Okay. He was actually good at guard last year.
He was the guard the whole time. That was kind of the thing.
That's true.
Not according to Scar. Not according to Scar.
He also has is it like the old Ezekiel Elliott Ewok hair now? It's kind of funny. It's kind of cool looking. Yeah. At corner. My lone observation from the defense. This is really from the week as a whole, but it just kind of hit me today. I don't know why it just did. It was actually Taylor when we were talking, trying to figure out is starting defense, is it not? Because they've been mixing and matching more so than with the offense. You'll get the starting defensive line with the backup safeties and the second string corners and whatever. And a lot of that, but they really have, it was all camp, but especially over the last week as they're getting ready for game prep. It's been a pretty regular rotation at corner, right? Jonathan Jones and Christian Gonzalez still, and specifically on the outside, they still look like the top guys on the outside, but we've seen Alex Austin there a good amount. We've seen Marco Wilson there a good amount. We've seen Marcus Jones mixed in there on the outside. I think that's actually indicative of what's to come. And I don't say that to say they don't believe in Christian Gonzalez. This is not about Christian Gonzalez. But one of Bill Belichick's philosophies, even when he had elite Hall of Fame corners, he would rotate on the boundary during games, usually a 3-man rotation, sometimes 4. And the idea was then at the end of the game, you'd have your 2 best corners on the field, and the receivers they're going against have run whatever it is, 50 routes, and they've only covered 30. So your guys have the fresher legs. Now, you have to be very deep at corner to do this, but this team has the corner depth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of that this year. And what I'll tack on to that, and this is something they didn't do a ton under Bill, but I wonder if they do more now under Mayo, and it's something Mayo's talked about, and honestly something Brian Belichick and Mike Pellegrino have talked about the versatility of the secondary being something they pride themselves in, if there isn't one consistent slot corner and it's Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, and Isaiah Bolden, who's been in this a little bit too, maybe filling in some on the inside while their guys rotate in on the outside and just giving different looks. So, to start games, to finish games, I think it's going to be Jonathan Jones and Christian Gonzalez as your boundary corners. I would not be surprised if there's a little more rotation during games than maybe some people are expecting. That's just a guess based on the way they're operating, knowing the way they operated under Bill. But again, not that much happened this practice. We got to fill a show. And I don't know. It feels kind of notable. Feels kind of like more of a regular season observation, Mike. I don't know if you disagree.
I'll say on the cornerback room that I agree with all that. I think ultimately it's going to be Gonzo and John Jones on the outside, and I do agree as well that there's going to be a rotation there. They've worked these guys in. They've worked Austin and Isaiah Bolden and Marco Wilson. But on Christian Gonzalez, you mentioned it, and you weren't saying that it's an indictment on Gonzo, but Gonzo's going to be fine. That dude's a gamer. I see it in practice now. Like it was on that play, Taylor, we talked about it today, where it was the over route, I think it was, to Jalen Reagor. And, he Jacoby put it on Gonzo's head, and Gonzo barely put a hand in the air. He tracked Reagor in coverage. He had him, and it's like he knew what he had to do, and he wasn't going to go for it. In a game, he's going to do that. This guy's going to be just fine. I think they trust him. There was a Burt Breer report last night, I think on Boston Sports Tonight, where this team has, big things involved, big things expected, rather, for Christian Gonzalez. They expect a lot out of him this season. And I don't disagree. I think he's going to be just fine. The alarm bells that went off on number 0, I don't buy into them at all. I think the cornerback room in general is going to be fine. I trust the guys outside of him in that room too. Last year, it ended up being a house of cards with Marcus Jones getting hurt and Jack Jones kind of, getting cut in his situation. And then they had to bring in Alex Austin and Marco Wilson. But those guys have proved themselves to be at least rotational players in the NFL. And I'm excited to see them all kind of get their fair share opposite Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Gonzo at all. I think he's fine. I'm not freaking out until we see him giving up plays in games, and it just becomes impossible to ignore. When it comes to the defense rotating corners, in the past, it's really been more situational, where they used to have Jason McCourty and then they had JC Jackson. And in obvious passing situations, they take Jason off and put JC on. Saw something kind of similar with Jack Jones. And then last season, when everyone was actually healthy at the same time against the Eagles in week 1, you did see in passing situations, they would put Marcus Jones on and sub out Miles Bryant. Then they'd have John Jones and Marcus Jones kind of rotate between in and out. And that was kind of the craziest rotation I think I've ever seen for the Patriots, where there wasn't a very obvious pattern. It was kind of like they were trying to get a feel. This year is a little different. I think they still want it to be Gonzo and the Joneses on the field. I think if those guys were consistently healthy, that would be the lineup. But the Joneses haven't been consistently healthy. They've each missed significant time this summer. So I do wonder if part of it is getting other people ready. And I also wonder if they have a rotation, I feel like it would be more because the competition is continuing into the season than it would be, we have so many, great players, we got to play them. Because frankly, outside of the Joneses, the corners haven't been making a ton of plays consistently. Like Alex Austin will pop up once in a while. Marco Wilson hasn't done anything bad. And even like Isaiah Bolden, he's been tight in coverage. I think the coverage has been solid for these guys, but it's not like a Jack Jones or a JC where it's like, this young dude is really good. Like, we need to find ways to integrate him because he's going to make plays on the ball. They don't really have that ball hawk, or at least not that we've seen this summer. So I agree. I think there will be a rotation, but I feel like it's going to have to do with the Jones's health situations and also how comfortable they actually feel with whoever's opposite Gonzo, because there's been so little consistency outside of him in the secondary.
Any other thoughts on the defense here?
Del Pettis.
I was just going to say Del Pettis is making a push. I think he's going to make the roster. Overall, training camp thoughts in general, the defensive line is going to continue to work by rotation and try and fill Judon and Christian Barmore's roles by more than just one people. And we've kind of seen that. And, we saw it with on the edge as well in the preseason game, Josh Uche gets in there, Keon White gets in there. They make some plays, but you're not going to fill Judon's role with just one guy. We'll see what happens, but I'm not too worried about it. But it's just going to take more than a few guys to fill that hole.
I'm worried about the depth at the edge, though, because today there was a rep where William Bradley King was on the edge with the rest of the starting defense. That tells you how shallow they were. Dietrich Wise didn't practice today. Zimenez and Joshua Uche haven't practiced all week, like going into the previous block of practices. It's not looking good. No offense to William Bradley King, but that man was on the practice squad last year, so that they don't have to necessarily be the heavy rotational edge group that we've seen. You know, obviously, like when they had Judon, they wanted him to stay there. They kind of rotated opposite him. But like Keon White is still unproven. As much as I like him, he's even acknowledged that he's better on the inside so far than he's been on the outside. Dietrich Wise, I don't know if you want him to play. You know, there were a couple years there where he played a crazy snap count, like way more than almost anybody else on the defensive line other than Judon. Can he do that again? I have no idea. Joshua Uche is a guy who's a big question mark because when he's on, but his availability has been a concern. His on-field consistency has been a concern outside of 2022. And I like O'Shane Zimenez a lot, but he's also a replacement level starter or like a rotational guy. He's not.
He's also dealing with injury right now too.
So like even when they're healthy, there's several question marks on the defensive, on the edge position. But now those guys are hurt, and you're like, wait, who's even going to be out there? Like you got Christian McCarroll, or did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
His name is really screwing me up. And Kobe Jones, those guys were getting significant reps. So I am very nervous about who they're going to put out there, how healthy those guys are going to be, and what kind of production you're even going to get from that edge position.
All right, one more from, well, I guess today as we start to look ahead, I want to do sort of big training camp thing after this, but I'm going to make you both talk about special teams since Brian isn't here because this is half a Patriots Beat show.
Do it for you,
no special teams reps today. No field goals, no punts. I think we all agree through this point, Joey Sly's been the better kicker. And they should keep him, whether or not the 4th-round pick has Chad Ryland stick around. It would be disappointing if that's the case. I'd be upset. I think it would be the wrong decision. It could happen. But let's just say for now, they're going to go off performance, and it's Joey Sly. Is there anything Ryland can do in the game to change it? And I'm going to ask you to put your coach hats on here. Do you give, because they've been alternating in these preseason games, what that's resulted in is Joey Sly kicking all the field goals and Chad Ryland kicking all the extra points. You're the coach. You want to make sure you have it righty kicker before roster cuts. Do you consider giving Joey Sly every single kick to make sure it's real? Or do you give Chad Ryland every single kick to see if maybe he's just better in a game situation?
I think I have an answer, so I can go first.
Okay.
Brian's still in the chat, by the way. Like, help me out here.
He's probably poking around. I would give it to Joey Sly. I don't think that Joey Sly has been better. I don't think it's been astronomically better. He's still had his hiccups just like Ryland has. So if you give it to Sly and he can't handle it, then you divert to Chad Ryland. And you say, okay, well, Sly can't handle it. I don't know if Ryland can either, but we gave Sly his moment. He won it, and he didn't perform. So let's give Ryland one more chance, and we'll go with Chad Ryland. Because at the end of the day, there's these dress rehearsals in the preseason, and you want to give guys more than just rotation bits and pieces. And if you think Sly's won the job, well, let him go truly win the job and stick a fork in it in the preseason game and finish this thing off.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm over the Chad Ryland experiment. It's a dude's second summer. I don't want to be dramatic, but I don't, like, what kind of game would he even have to have in the preseason for him to win the job? Like, we're talking, he would need like 5 opportunities to kick field goals. They'd all have to be from like 45 plus. Like, I just feel like he would need really a monster performance to even really be in contention again, at least from my perspective. Obviously, we don't know how they feel inside. But yeah, I think it's Joey Sly's job to lose. Give him the opportunities, give him more time to get comfortable, work things out, whatever, because Chad probably isn't going anywhere, like we mentioned, if you cut him anyway. He's probably going to the practice squad. One, I don't think anybody's going to claim him, and I also don't think he'd want to go anywhere because Bryce Behringer's like his best friend. So, I think it's Joey Sly's job. I don't think we need to do – again, I don't even think it's fair to call it a dog and pony show if you do give Ryland opportunities. I just very much am kind of over it because, again, Chad has never proven that he can be a decent NFL kicker. Joey Sly has, and that is basically what we've seen this entire summer.
All right, we got one more, right? We got to hear from our friends at Prize Picks, and then we'll kind of put the bow on training camp.
Sounds good. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in, get in on the daily action with your friends, and become part of Prize Picks community today. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks, turning $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win your pick. You don't even need to win your pick. Just receive the $50 bonus. It's completely guaranteed. If you think Tyreek Hill will score more than 90.5 yards in week 1 or Aaron Jones to run for more than 66.5 yards, cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. It's the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds at Prize Picks. Head over there today. Download the app and use code CLNS for your first deposit match bonus up to $100. That is code CLNS on Prize Picks for a first deposit match bonus up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right.
Two things quick.
Yeah.
Two things quick. One, Christian McCarroll signed a 3-year deal. Is that normal?
Was he with anybody else before the Patriots?
Let's see.
I don't. If he wasn't, it's a UDFA deal because he's a rookie.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure about. It doesn't say he was on a last season he was consensus All-American. No, I don't think he was on another team.
Yeah, so it is normal.
Yeah, it's like remember last year when they signed Malik Cunningham from the practice squad
right,
to a 3-year deal. It's like that. It's just when you're a UDFA, that's the first contract you get. You get a 3-year deal. So I wouldn't read too much into that.
Also, found out that Jackson Carman actually has some very serious allegations that came up for him in 2022. Inappropriate sexual conduct with a 15-year-old.
Oh,
he's out. He's out.
Yeah, I'm good.
Delete my tweet about him. He's not going to be an option.
So not to get into it, but what the hell took Cincinnati this long to cut him?
He was still helping them win football games, and I don't need
that
to justify it, but
yeah, I don't know that the Bengals are necessarily known for being some like morally upright organization. For most of these teams, honestly, I assume that they don't care. Or just at least would be willing to overlook it. But obviously, we know Robert Kraft does not tolerate stuff like that. So for this team, he's out.
Yeah. All right.
Easy enough.
Let's get to training camp. Give me your biggest, who surpassed expectations the most, and your biggest disappointment for camp. We'll start with Tayler. You lit up, so I think you have an answer. Who were you the most happy, surprised about from this training camp?
Let's see. I'm looking through I'll say Drake Maye. I mean, he basically showed pretty much everything we wanted to see. He made steady progress. Everything from the coaches has been great, and not just coach speak great, because I feel like this coaching staff would still be pretty transparent. Like if he wasn't playing well, they just wouldn't be showering him with praise, but they are. There's been no regressions. You see, he's getting more aggressive. He's getting more comfortable. So that's been awesome. I don't want to say he exceeded expectation necessarily, but I was hoping that he was going to be able to take to the footwork and improve the things mechanically he needed to. And TC McCartney was like, yeah, no, he's been great. He's a really quick learner. So that was cool. Biggest disappointment has to be Javon Baker for me, because he kind of really crashed back down to earth towards the end of the summer. I'm still rooting for the dude. I still think he has a ton of talent and potential, and I'm not saying that I'm out on him, but the fact that he was doing pretty well early in the summer, at the end of the spring, and was healthy and didn't really do much of anything for the past month has been very, I don't want to say discouraging necessarily, but it was disappointing.
Mike?
My top guy is Jaylen Pul. He's someone who, when me and Taylor went down to Foxboro before training camp, I should say he met my expectations. He's a guy who I had as a dark horse, like 1,000-yard receiver type player who I think could get involved immediately and make an immediate impact in week 1. And he's shown pretty much all of that so far. Again, we talked about him earlier, so I don't have to dive into it too much more. But I think he's going to play significant reps in the offense pretty much right away. And that's exactly, if not more than what you want to see from the 37th overall pick. Disappointments, I'll go – Alex Austin's one of them for me. I expected him to do more to grab more of a stranglehold on that other starting cornerback position. He's been fine. He's been up and down. The other corners have been pretty much the same around him. And I thought he could have been a little bit better than that. And then I'll just throw Armon Watts in there as well, someone who was signed. He was their first free agent signing, I believe, this offseason. If not one of them, maybe it was Chooks, but he was, one of the first guys they brought in, and has pretty much been a no-show. Has played throughout most of the training game, or throughout most of the preseason games, rather, with like the 2s, 3s, and 4s, and just hasn't separated himself at all on a defensive line that desperately needs guys to step up. He hasn't done it.
So I would say for me, exceeding expectations, I would probably go with Jeremiah Farms. I thought he'd maybe be like back end. You're right. I thought he'd be like back end of the roster, kind of reserve defensive tackle. And boy, did he have a fantastic summer, and he's going to be a key player for them. Biggest letdown, Javon Baker. I not that my expectations were that high, but I thought he'd prove to be at least a rotational player. I thought he'd outplay Tyquan Thornton. I guess let me put it that way. I thought he would be the X, not Tyquan Thornton, and he came up well short of that. So I'll say that. Give me one. No,
I'll also just go real quick. KJ Osborne and O'Shane Zimenez, 2 other guys.
Yeah.
Jalen Hawkins, Del Pettis. I would say there's been more guys who impressed than I would say that disappointed. Looking through the roster, there's not a ton of guys where I'm like, that was not what I was expecting. It's been pretty much like either they were as good or they were better, I'd say.
All right. So here's another one. Here's another question kind of as we wrap things up. And I like to think about this. I do this during the draft every year. There's so much that we cover, and it's so frantic that it can be really easy for things to get lost in the flow. Maybe there's a point or a player you want to make that you just never find the time to make it because there's bigger stories. Is there one player or just one take that maybe you brought up a little bit, but didn't get the attention that they maybe should have gotten during this camp? For me, the cornerback rotation take was part of that. I would say the other thing is, and I actually heard you guys talking about it today on a video earlier, Jermichael Hasty, Kevin Harris, both look good. Maybe they keep four running backs. Their running back depth looks good. There's never really a time to bring that up, but Jermichael Hasty had a really good camp. We didn't talk about it a ton. There just really weren't opportunities to it never made sense as a topic because there were always bigger things going on, but let's give Jermichael Hasty credit for the camp that he had. Is there anything that maybe slipped under the radar, good or bad, player, position group, just overall thought, even something with the coaching staff? It's a new look coaching staff that you didn't get to talk about as much as you would have liked to, or you think maybe you should have?
Taylor, you got
linebackers. The linebackers are all good. And that's been a pretty cool thing. Christian Ellis, Joe Giles Harris, guys who are really more special teamers or fringe roster guys. Giles Harris was on the practice squad last year. They've both shown up in coverage against the run. They're tough. They're physical. They're smart guys. And then even Steel Chambers has made a couple plays. He hasn't necessarily wowed or anything, but I think, and obviously Juwan Bentley, Jelani Tavai, those guys are, gangbusters, and Raekwon McMillan has had a really good summer. Linebacker, I think, just by nature of what it is, unless you are like a Fred Warner type and you're getting your hands on a lot of passes, it just naturally kind of falls under the radar. But those guys have looked good. Dante Hightower, first summer as a coach, seems like he's doing a pretty good job.
Taylor, let me ask you this before we get to Mike, if you have an answer for this. Sione Takitaki, what's his job when he comes back? They're not going to cut him, but does this make it a little harder for him to get on the field when he comes back? Because they look good without him. They look capable without him.
I still think he's better than they are. I think that and I know that Wolf loves him. I think the experience that the Browns guys have with him, also as a personality, when you meet him, you're like, oh, I understand why they love this guy. He's really cool. But I think he's a better player. I think he's going to be their third linebacker over Raekwon McMillan when he's back. What he does, I'm honestly not sure, because with the Browns, he played every down for them. He wasn't just a coverage guy. He wasn't just a run stopper. So I'm not really sure. I don't think they're going to want to take Juwan Bentley off the field. And if they do, it's probably going to be Jelani Tavai who goes on for him. So I don't think he's going to be like a dime linebacker the way that Mac Wilson was in a way. I really think he's truly going to be just a third linebacker who, if Juwan Bentley misses time or somebody just needs a breather, they try to mix him in. But it's a good question. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see him play because I wanted to see what packages he'd be involved in.
Mike, before you give your answer on this, I'll say we have 1,800 people watching on like a beautiful Friday summer afternoon.
Good
So
stuff.
I want to give you guys a full hour show. After Mike gives his answer, we'll open up to Q&A because we haven't done that all of camp. If you have any questions about what we saw from camp or looking ahead, put them in the chat. We'll do a Q&A the last 10 minutes. But Mike, anything that snuck under the radar for you in this camp that you thought deserved more attention?
So I will second what Tayler said about the linebackers because of the fact that we didn't mention Jawan Bentley and Jelani Tavai because they're just really good and nothing stood out in a good or in a bad way, rather. They just did their job. You mentioned the running backs too. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson is going to have a really good year in the system, I think. He's come back. He's looks ready to go. He had a little bit less tread in his tire last year from the injury, but he's had a longer time to get healthy. I think he's going to have a solid season. I'll also add, I'm sure you guys have talked about it on Patriots Beat, but the Patriots have a freaking weapon in Bryce Behringer at punter.
Yes,
like that dude's just a machine.
Another one of mine.
And finally, we've done a lot of talk about the wide receiver room, and we've done a lot of tweeting and taking pictures of Kendrick Bourne being on the field, but being able to add someone like that on the field who can basically, as soon as he's healthy, once he's healthy, he's going to be a contributor. I think that's going to be slept on. Kendrick Bourne's a really good football player. And I think that that will help Drake Maye along that much more to have a reliable guy like that in your offense. What can finally, try and squeeze him into the game plan. He signed a 3-year deal, so he's a part of not just this year, but he's a part of the future. And I'm excited to see him get going on the field once that day finally comes.
And by the way, the total number, it's 365 or whatever on YouTube. I can see the full breakdown because we stream live on our Twitters as well. I want to give a special shout out to the 48 people watching on Brian Hines' Twitter page when he's not even on the show. So shout out to them. Let's take some of these questions here before we wrap up training camp. Most awkward moment of camp for you guys?
When I accidentally interrupted Drake Maye while he was talking about how important it was to sign autographs for children. And then Mike Reese.
Yeah, Drake, enough with the kids, enough with the charity. Just talk about the football.
Just for football. Yeah.
No, I'm making flight. No, I'm sorry. I was like thinking about it for days after. It just like, oh God, it still makes me cringe. I felt like such a jerk, but it happens.
It happens. Mine is also off the field, and it was before one of our post-game shows. Me and Tayler ran into Mike Pellegrino on the field. He was talking to us about his transition from going from coaching in the booth to coaching on the field, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what he's doing now. He's coaching on the field. And so when a few days later, we had the defensive assistants, and I asked him a question about his transition from going to the field to going to the booth, and I mixed the two up, and he got confused, and I was just like, oh, I'm just such an idiot. What am I doing? Like, why did I even ask a question if I can't even get the question right?
Well, you got to get it on the record. I get that. Surprise cut. Armin Watts doesn't count. He's not a surprise cut anymore.
We talked about this. I'm not really sure if anybody would be a surprise. I
mean, there's going to be one. There's going to be one that's going to be like, oh, wow, that they have different plans for this guy. Does
Calvin Anderson count? No, probably not.
Probably not at this point. Uche?
He's just so – that would be a surprise because he's so cheap.
If Judon was still here, I would say – but he hasn't really practiced. He might be unhappy with his contract, which is weird because he just signed it.
Yeah.
If Matthew Judon was still here, I would say Josh Uche. I just don't think they can afford to cut him. I don't think they can't. They can't afford to cut him.
Kayshon Boutte?
I'm actually going to go with Sione Takitaki.
Couldn't you just start on PUP?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really make sense for them to cut him.
What about
it's
Alex
a tough
Austin?
Camp for that. They've been rotating him. He's worked a lot with that top unit, though.
But that's why it would be a surprise.
I'll give you one. Not a surprise cut, because I don't think they'd cut him. But I do wonder if they'd trade him. Tyquan Thornton.
Okay.
Talking him up. Do they flip him?
I only hate it because he is one of the most talented X's they have, and they just don't have a guy who could start like outside of him. If the Jalen Reagor, we saw what he looks like as an X. I don't want any more of that. Javon's not ready. I like Kayshon Boutte, but he's a rotational player at this point in his career. I don't know about that. I would be very upset if Tyquan wasn't on the team.
All right, Taylor.
I have a quick another shocking roster move. What if Marte Amapu ends up on full season IR? And they just sit him down for an entire season?
That's probably it for him here.
Yeah, it would be.
I say after giving that whole spiel 10 minutes ago about Anthony Jennings, I would think that would be it for Marte Mapu here.
Yeah.
All right, but Tayler, you said Alex Austin. Who is a corner that has shocked you in a good way or a bad way in camp?
Pull my roster. Marcus Jones, because I feel like last summer he was super inconsistent. Even when he was inside, we're thinking he's so small, and it really popped. It felt like everybody was catching the ball over his head. He was really competitive in the beginning of the summer when he was healthy. Then the health fell off, and I think his production got more quiet, and he hasn't really done much lately. I don't think that's totally his fault. The past few days, as we know, haven't been super competitive, period. But Marcus Jones definitely impressed me. I like what I've seen from him when he's on the field.
Mike.
Tayler, I know you were relatively low on Jones. I remember vividly in the not vividly, but I remember you saying that in the preseason.
I don't think he's reliable. Yeah.
I will say too. I'll repeat what I said before about disappointment. It's Alex Austin. I don't think he's going to get cut, but I expected him to be more competitive and make more of a push for that, complete starting outside role and make the inside easier and use the two Joneses there and give yourself more depth. But instead, it looks like they're gonna rotate on the outside. So besides that, I mean, nothing really surprised me at that position too much.
This is kind of a weird answer. And this is more my own fault than his fault. I got really into those few good practices Azizi Hearn had at the end of the spring. And I thought he was going to make a push. And he didn't. He had a rough camp. That's probably on me. But I don't know. He was playing well at the end of spring. And I was like, they can find corners. So I'm looking at that saying, did they find another corner? And I don't think they did with him.
I also just thought of another surprise cut candidate who I actually think would technically be a surprise, Antonio Mafi. A surprise because
I don't think it's a surprise. I think he's off the roster.
Only because of his draft status. Because I had him as a practice squad guy before even spring camp started. People were like, "What? What do you mean?" I'm like, "No, I don't think he's very good."
So let me qualify this for you, Tayler.
Okay.
He's a surprise cut if they keep Chad Ryland. Because if they keep Chad Ryland, they're putting stock on the previous regime's draft picks, basically. Right? I'd put him in the same boat. It's a good point. And I would say I'd put him in the same boat as Ryland. There are guys that based off draft stock, and I talked about this before camp, remember? That when you have a new GM, when you have a new coach, sometimes guys that you wouldn't think of as being as in danger on the roster actually are, because the people that drafted him, the people that liked him aren't in the building anymore. Mafi goes right in that boat with Chad Ryland. I would say Marte Mapu as well.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. Will I play in the Beat Writers football game next year? And will Amit win comeback player of the year? Well, those two answers are related. There's not going to be one.
No way.
So we'll just leave it there. I would play. I got a little FOMO watching it. I wish I had played. And because I got so psyched out about it, I'm like trying to get back in better shape now. I'm also doing that for my own physical well-being. But there's not going to be one. If there is a Patriots Writers Open and we play golf, I will be there.
That would be fun.
I will tell you 100%. I'll take a couple more questions here before we wrap it up. All right. This is actually a good one. Give me the primary reason Drake Maye is not getting reps with the starters and will not start week 1.
I'll say it. Oh, week 1, or what's going to keep him off the field early? I think what is the primary reason he's not repping with the ones and won't start the season as the starting quarterback? Jacoby Brissett's if Jacoby Brissett's playing good football, I think. If they're going out there and playing respectable football, I don't think there's much reason to put Drake Maye in yet if Jacoby's not, completely blowing out there, to be blunt about it.
I think that Jacoby's going to play the first month unless he's horrendous. But if he plays past, then I think it's just going to be that the team's actually exceeding expectation.
I don't think they love let me phrase that differently. Drake Maye's not 100% where they want him to be mentally. And I don't mean that in the case that I'm not warning bells off of that, but it's a very different offense than the one he ran in college. Alex Van Pelt talked about this the other day about him having all the tools he needs to properly operate the offense. He maybe hasn't gotten there yet. There was so much they had to do starting in the spring with his footwork that now, they started with day 1, quarterback 101, introductory level. They're now on AP level graduate courses, but I don't think he has the degree yet. And I don't think they want him starting until he has the degree. And I think some of the things he needs to do to earn that can't be done until the regular season starts. And he has to see how Jacoby Brissett does things, and he just has to see how an NFL game week goes. So I don't think the mental part's fully there yet. I think they can get him there, and I think you're seeing signs that he is getting closer to it. I think that's why. Because if it was solely based on performance, he would be taking the majority of the reps with the starters right now. So yeah, I know that Van Pelt said that the other day, Jacoby, he's our starter. I think that's a half truth. I don't think it's a lie. I think it's a half truth.
Yeah, I think the distinction that – sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the distinction that he's not really going to be able to get to where they want him mentally before he starts until the regular season is important, because they mentioned they want to make sure that he has answers to different things, and he's only seen the Patriots defense. It felt very much that they were saying, we want Jacoby to be able to put on film how you respond to these different situations against these different types of defenses, coverages, blitz packages, what have you. And then when Maye goes in, it's not like, oh my God, I've literally never seen this in my life. It's more like, oh, this is like what happened in week 1, or this is like what happened in week 2. Got it. I've seen it done the right way. Now I can also repeat it, because like for me, the big thing was football was basically just a bunch of situations. Like, obviously, you got third down, red zone, but there are millions of permutations for how things can happen in a game. And with guys like Mahomes and Brady, like the fact they remember them, they're in their memory bank, and they can always go back to their answers is what makes them so hard to defend. And I think being on the field will be important, but also just having some kind of mental Rolodex going into your first career start. I think that does make a lot of sense.
We'll rapid fire a few of these. There are some good questions here. I know we're at an hour, but I do want to get to these before we wrap it up. Bailey Zappi on the team this year on the practice squad. I don't think he gets claimed. I don't. He didn't get claimed last year. Put off good tape. Do they need to keep him? I think he's on the practice squad because of something I said earlier. I don't think they feel they need the buffer quarterback between Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye.
Yeah, I think they're gonna.
Yeah, and all right. So here's a question off of that. Zappi gets cut. They keep 3 quarterbacks, and Jacoby Brissett goes down in week 1, and Maye finishes the game. Week 2 comes around. Do they start Drake Maye, or do they pull Zappi up and start Zappi?
If you put Maye in, you can't put that genie back in the bottle.
Even if it's at the end of a game.
I think some of it comes down to how he looks and how much he plays.
Okay.
If he's like a catastrophe, then you're not going to just like leave him out there to suffer. But I just don't think Maye is going to ever, not ever, but I don't think he's going to have a game where you're just like, oh God, maybe he shouldn't play at all. I think he's going to have his speed bumps. I don't think it'll be that bad.
I'll tell you, I think Zappi would definitely be elevated to the active roster if Jacoby Brissett was going to make time, but he might back up Drake Maye. Who's the easiest starting Patriots player to talk to?
Demario Douglas.
Yeah, he's just
so fun.
Yeah.
So I'll put Jabril Peppers up there too.
Yeah.
I don't think he loves doing media, but I think he not embraces it, but like he plays the game. He doesn't. I don't think he loves it, but it's not a chore for him either.
Kendrick Bourne's easy too when he talks. We haven't talked to KB in a while, but he'll always give a good answer.
There was one more here I wanted to get to. Where is it? Hang on.
Oh, Dietrich Wise. We'll throw in Dietrich Wise.
Actually. Oh, yeah. Nice guy. Just such a nice guy.
Person to talk to. Yeah.
I love all the people putting in the chat, all the players, like day 3 players we hyped up during the draft. Like, this guy's going to get cut. He should come back. Like, I forgot some of these names. So good job, guys.
Zach Kuntz got thrown in there.
I saw Zach Kuntz. Josiah Erazim, I think his name was, right? All right, here we go. Will the Patriots, they have not had a 1,000-yard receiver since Edelman. I think it's 19, right?
Yeah.
Will the Patriots have a 1,000-yard receiver? If so, who is it?
Jaylen Pul.
If anyone, it would probably be Polk, because I want to say Pop, but one, he's not on the field for every snap, and also I don't know if he'll be on the if he'll play every game. I also think this is going to be a team that throws to a lot of different people. I don't know that anyone's going to be so good they warrant 1,000 yards.
Pop's not going to be healthy enough. He probably has the talent. I just don't know if he plays 17 games. Yeah. Kendrick Bourne could, if he was healthy. I think in even if he comes back as soon as possible, 13 games is probably, he'll get close. High 800s, low 900s. I just don't know that he's going for 1,000 in 13 games. But I still believe if he's the same player he was before the knee injury, I've said this for years now, Kendrick Bourne has the talent to be a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL. He just hasn't been given the opportunity, unfortunately. Well, he was given the opportunity in 2021, and then he got COVID.
Was he on pace last season for 1,000 yards?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was on pace
he was having like 1,200 last year. Yeah.
And like it's been so long since 2021. I think we forget how many insane catches he had that year. Like the one against the Browns, I think it was, where he goes up into double coverage.
That's the best throw of Mac Jones' career.
Yeah. it was kind of dangerous, honestly. To this day, I'm still not sure if he should have thrown that ball the way he did. I feel like it was kind of like the Bailey Zappi Hunter Henry touchdown last year, where it's like, I think you got a little bit lucky. I think it looks good because it worked, but I don't know if you meant to do exactly what you did. But yeah, no, Kendrick is a beast, and I do think we forget just how good he can be with a quarterback who's willing to give him chances downfield.
So Kendrick Bourne in 2021, I used to bring the stat up all the time. This was when Matt Patricia benched him. From week 3, they were still figuring their offense out the first 2 weeks. From week 3 until week 12, he got COVID before the week 13 game. It was never really the same. But in that 10-game stretch, his full season pace, if he continued on that pace, 66 catches, 1,013 yards, 8 touchdowns. I believe that's who he could be. Obviously, then he gets benched in 2022. He doesn't have a shot. Last year, the pace he was on before he got hurt, if Pro Football Reference will corroborate here, was drum roll, please. Guy was a little bit behind. It was 80 catches for 870 yards and 8 touchdowns was his pace. So a little bit under, but I believe he can be a 1,000-yard receiver, or could. Now it's like 3 years later. He's, going to be 30. Yeah, coming off an ACL. It's a shame. I think he could have been special in that 2022 season. I still hold that one against Matt Patricia. I still hold a lot against Matt Patricia, but that's towards the top of the list.
So when KB comes back, what's his role and who gets cut? Because they're probably going to keep 7 receivers.
So I think his role comes down to who's performing. Is Polk playing well? Is Osborne playing well? Probably one of those guys gets less time. It may not be somebody getting cut. If Tyquan gets hurt, right? He gets that roster spot. If Pop Douglas gets hurt, maybe he goes on IR for a little bit.
Kayshon Boutte is probably the odd man out.
I was going to say, if they're going to keep 7, Kayshon Boutte's probably the 7th guy. Taylor, I know that sucks, but who else are they cutting?
I wanted you to say somebody different.
Unless Javon Baker maybe gets Foxboro flued. But
I wouldn't be shocked.
A full season to get.
He needs development. That's the whole thing. He needs development. He needs to be on the field. So I would love them Foxboro fluing him.
Month. I really like the guy. Like I said, I think he'll be fine, but he hadn't done anything.
I also think they get Kayshon Boutte on the practice squad. Honestly,
that's fair. Yeah, they could.
Depends how he does in the next preseason game. He's put on some good tape this preseason.
Well, I'm talking about when Kendrick Bourne comes back, week 4, week 5.
Right.
And one of two things is going to happen. At that point, he's not playing well. So that's why you're giving Kendrick Bourne his roster spot and you get him on the practice squad. Or he's playing really well. And if he is, well, he's not the guy that's coming off the roster then. Right. So then it
all works out for Kayshon.
There's just not a lot of options, period. Like, you're not cutting Pop, you're not cutting Jaylen. Javon, maybe they put him on IR, but they're not going to cut him. Jalen Reagor, you're not getting rid of him because he's a kick returner.
Yeah.
That really just leaves Tyquan and Boutte.
And Osborne.
Tyquan, they're high on him. So, yeah. Damn.
And if they're not going to get rid of – I was going to say they're not going to – they're going to have to find room for Kendrick Bourne. That is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting how they do it.
But that's also one where maybe they give him an extra week or two and, let him because they can't activate him until week 5. But then they have 3 more – he can't return to practice until week 5. Then they have 3 more weeks until they activate him. So maybe if they're not sure yet, they're like, all right, you're cleared. We're going to start ramping you up, but we're not exactly sure yet what we want you to do with the roster. The other thing is week 5 might be the Drake Maye week. Are you putting Drake Maye out there in his first start with the receiver coming off a torn ACL who he's never played with?
I think so, just because KB is so reliable. But also, if you see that he has rapport with other people, then probably, if KJ Osborne, they've been, on it. And KJ is a Z, like Kendrick Bourne. So that's another thing where, most of their good players are Z receivers, and that's what Kendrick Bourne is. Is he going to be an X? I don't think so, because I don't think he's fast enough. So, how does that even work? Because he's going to cut into either Polk's playing time, Osborne's playing time, which wouldn't be terrible, but Osborne has chemistry with both of the top quarterbacks. So
I could see them playing him at X, but I'll say this before we wrap it up. I'll put the bow on this. What's up?
He is jacked now. I was joking last year, is he trying to be an X or KB? He came back swole. I was like, geez Louise. I think he's trying to play outside more.
I will say this. If all their receivers are too good to move on from, I'll take that. I will happily take that. after what we've been through the last few years. I will be so excited if we get to have this conversation for real in October. Man, all the wide receivers are playing so well. Who do you move on for Kendrick Bourne? I will love it if we get to have this conversation for real. If that happens, hell, we might have a football season here. And wouldn't that be something? And
go ahead first, and then I'll throw something on the wide receivers quick.
No, well, I wanted to wrap it up and say on that very optimistic note.
Oh,
so give your point. Go ahead.
I got two things. One is it's a little pessimistic on receivers, but like Jalen Reagor, right? If he's not doing anything, they can figure out kick returns without him. If he's just a non-factor in the offense,
right.
Like Antonio Gibson's back there, Kevin Harris, Isaiah Bolden, they could figure that out and make that work. The other thing is non-wide receiver, Lynn. It's week 5 related. And we've talked about week 5 being the landing spot for Drake Maye. It's after the San Francisco game. It gives him some time. It cuts his the rookie wall in half or wherever you want to call that. You know what it also might be? And these are unsourced rumors, but it's Tom Brady calling Patriots versus Dolphins on Fox. That's pretty cool. If Drake Maye's first start with the Patriots is being called, but come on, objectively, that's cool if Brady calls that game.
Also, objectively, you don't need better ratings for that. That's Brady back at Gillette. People are watching that, whoever the quarterback is, and Brady definitely has better stories about Jacoby Brissett than he has about Drake Maye, if he has any stories about Drake Maye. So I would pump the brakes on that. If it was, you can sell that game without. That is the one game on the schedule I would argue you can sell easily without Drake Maye.
Yeah, that's a fair
point.
But it would still be cool if they cross paths there.
It would be cool. It would be cool. But all right, we'll leave it on that note then. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in throughout all of training camp. These shows have been awesome. There will be more crossovers. We're still trying to figure out exactly what that's going to look like. Well, actually, the next crossover will be we're going to do that punter draft live as a crossover. So there'll be that, and we'll probably take questions during the draft and just kind of chat and have some fun.
We're just going to be hanging out. We're going to be sitting on couches. We're going to be drinking beers.
Having some fun. I've kind of proposed once a month. I know you guys want these all the time. One, when it's 4 of us, none of us individually get to talk as much, and we want to be able to give our takes. Also, I'm somebody who believes the NFL needs to cut it with the Wednesday games and the Black Friday games and the 4 games a week. You don't want to oversaturate the product. I do kind of want these crossovers to be special.
Fair.
So, Taylor, I know you hate that take, but
I just like talking football with my friends. I'm sorry. I'm so crazy.
You still get to talk with Mike, but
friends. I like all you guys. Mike's fine.
Hey, if you guys have any ideas,
now.
somebody at one point pitched, we just do these after wins, which I don't know. I think people want it maybe a little more than that.
Fair.
But if you guys have any ideas, they'll continue during the season. And I'll be on with Taylor. We're going to start our college football draft shows up again. Probably not until the regular season gets going, both regular seasons. But
by the time Drake Maye's a starter,
I will say at some point in September, those shows will be back. So you'll still get me with Taylor. I know Brian and Mike, you guys can figure something out. Go for it. But
crossover.
I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. The numbers have been fantastic all of camp. And it's been great. So for Tayler Kyles and Mike, you can find their stuff, CLNSmedia.com. New Patriots Daily. When's the next one? It's going to be Monday, I'm guessing. Game reaction.
Probably.
Yeah.
We'll have a post-game show.
Yeah.
Pre and post on Sunday.
So those guys, you can catch those guys Sunday night. Me and Brian will do our reactions probably Monday evening, Monday night. You can find Brian's not even here, but for the summer, you can find Brian's work on patspulpit.com. Maybe he has a concert review coming. You can find my stuff on 98.5thesportshub.com. That's summer. One more preseason game, and then here we go. Roster cuts, and we're moving. So until then, for Mike Kadlick, Tayler Kyles, for Brian Hines, watching the Plains down at Gillette, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.